Episode 2, Part 1. Setting up a development team for Virtual RC V3. My name is Peter Barefoots. After having promoted our Virtual RC Gameport adapter together with version 1 and 2 of the Virtual RC racing game, I thought it was time to step it up to the next level. I started laying out my plans to Lothar, and he seemed receptive to the idea of making a more realistic and serious RC car simulation. Lothar had created versions 1 and 2 of Virtual RC racing all by himself. For VRC V3, it was clear from the outset that my ambitions with this latest version were a lot higher and would need a bigger team to develop it. In my plans, I envisaged very detailed RC cars and tracks, and a sophisticated physics engine to make the cars behave as realistic as possible. And of course, I wanted the new platform to be able to organize races for the members and post the results on a website. Those were the ideas for VRC V3, but it was clear that we would need a lot of additional expertise in each of these fields. Game architecture, 3D engine, and graphical user interface. Lothar had already done his own game and had some expertise to develop a proper game architecture, 3D engine, and graphical user interface to enable all my ideas. The newly developed third generation of our 3D engine featured, among other things, real-time shadows and lighting, smoke, and support for 3D models with a high polygon count. The game architecture included code for dual-player mode and replay mode. The newly designed graphical user interface also featured detailed RC car setup options, and this led me to the next topic, how to find a physics engine developer. Another major coincidence was how we got our developer team together. Lothar had asked his father, who was a physics professor in Heidelberg, to keep an eye out for suitable candidates. Coincidentally, Lothar's father was contacted by email by a young guy from Minneapolis in the United States who had some questions for him about physics as he was developing a physics engine for a real car sim. His name was Todd Wasson. Lothar got in touch with Todd and asked him if he was interested to work on this new Virtual RC simulator project. Todd had absolutely no idea what he was getting involved in and knew nothing about RC cars, but apparently thought it was interesting and challenging enough to get involved in. It also provided an opportunity for Todd to develop his skills in the field of physics engines and vehicle dynamics in kind of a low-profile racing environment. If I remember well, Todd had thus far released a drag racing performance analysis tool in which one could play with clutch settings and tires. Apparently it had raised some interest with amateur drag racing enthusiasts. So that was the second job filled, but no idea what I could expect. And we also need a 3D graphics developer. Yet another coincidence. Todd had developed several contacts in the racing sim development world, and one of these contacts happened to be with West Racing from the UK. They were developing their own car racing sim for 70s Formula One cars called Racing Legends. West Racing was only two brothers, Tony and Chris West. They were twins. When they started their own racing sim project a few years before, they had tossed a coin to decide who was going to develop the game itself, the coding stuff, and who was going to do all the 3D artwork. It turned out that Tony was going to be the graphics artist, a skill he had to develop from scratch. I approached Tony to see if he was interested in also work on the VRC project, besides his own project. He agreed, and up until now Tony has done all the fantastic 3D graphics and artwork for VRC, such as cars, components, tracks, and the graphical user interface designs, and at a later stage designing the Virtual RC portal and promotional stuff including the V3 packaging. More about that later. Everything you see in VRC-Pro and on the VRC portal has been created by Tony West. So lucky to get him involved from the very beginning.